About 3 months ago, I brought you a video of the Denza Z9 GT, which I described as a Chinese super wagon. Today, however, I'm going to give you a video of the Chinese super sedan, the Denza Z9.
Welcome to Wheels Boy, where we cover the newest, coolest, and wildest vehicles from the Chinese car market. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Pricing for the Z9 sedan and Z9 GT wagon are identical at $46,000 USD for an entry-level model, all the way up to $57,000 USD for a top-spec ultra trim level like our test car.
We went in depth on the exterior and interior design of the Z9 GT in our first video, and seeing as how these two cars, with one major exception, are exactly the same in those two respects, I recommend you go back and watch that video if you want to understand those aspects of the car. In this video, we're going to focus on some other things. Yes, by the way, I know I'm wearing the exact same outfit as I was in that video from 3 months ago. Yes, I own more than one pair of clothing. I just wanted to have, I don't know, a theme to it. This used to be the outfit I wore when I reviewed Hi-Fi's, but Hi-Fi's dead, so I guess this is now what I wear when I review Denzas. The major difference that I reference is obviously the fact that this thing has turned from a wagon, in the case of the Z9 GT, to a fastback sedan, in the case of this, the Z9. I am a wagon lover, so I'm obviously going to prefer the body style of the Z9 GT, but I think there's also some aesthetic reasons to prefer that car. Mainly the fact that this design kind of emphasizes what I think is going to be the most controversial part of the Z9 GT and Z9's design overall, and that is the rear end lighting. This was, in the words of the designer, supposed to be a very unique and identifiable design, and I have to say they managed to make that happen, but I cannot say that I think it's particularly beautiful. In the case of the Z9 GT wagon, it had more shape to it up here, which distracted, I think, from the distinctiveness of this lower lighting. But in the case of the Z9, well, it's just there for you to see. Another reason I prefer the Z9 GT is more practical. Its rear cargo space. The Z9 GT already didn't have a particularly impressive rear cargo space for a 5.2 meter long wagon. It was 488 liters. That's less, for example, than the 551 liters of the slightly under 5 meters in length Volvo V90. This, at 375 liters, it's even less useful. It's on par with the very small trunk of the Neo ET7, and just like in the Z9 GT, you've got this big refrigerator for the rear row poking in to the rear cargo compartment, further messing things up.
The Z9 comes with the same PHEV and EV powertrains as its wagon alter ego, both of which use the E3 tri-motor system. Power levels range from 640 kilowatts or 850 horsepower for the PHEV to 710 kilowatts or 960 horsepower for the pure electric. Both powertrains use BYD's LFP Blade battery packs, with the pure EV squeezing a CLTC range of 630 kilometers out of a 100 kilowatt-hour pack, and the PHEV managing a pure electric range of 201 kilometers from a 38.5 kilowatt-hour pack. Of course, the real calling card for the E3 system is its ability to combine rear steer with precise control of each wheel via its 3 electric motors. This not only gives it a turning radius smaller than a Mini Cooper, it also allows it to complete a compass turn, where it locks one of its front wheels and gracefully spins around it. U-turns and parallel parking just got a whole lot easier.
The interior specifications on the Z9 are identical to the Z9 GT, but the arrangement is slightly different, indicative of the fact that this is more of a family sedan versus the sportier GT wagon. Starting with things that are the same. You've got the same 26-speaker available DBLA sound system. You've got the same 17.3-inch center screen powered by a BYD self-developed chip called the BYD 9000. You've also got the same 13.2-inch passenger screen, the same 13.2-inch instrument cluster and heads-up display. Where things start to differ is in the arrangement of the center console here. Whereas on the Z9 GT you had a crystalline shifter right here, this one is column mounted up there. You've also got the same dual wireless charging pads, 50 watts each, but instead of being a plastic piece that raises and lowers when you enter the car, this is fixed and it's now Alcantara covered. The plastic switches that used to be here have been moved up here to the top. You still also have the same heated, cooled, and massaging seating functions both front and rear. The back row, in terms of features and styling, is again the same as the Z9 GT, but this car does have some options that we didn't have on the Z9 GT that we reviewed. That includes dual rear entertainment screens, as you can see. These are the very familiar ones that we've seen in other Denza models like the D9 MPV. I know this because one, the size, and two, the fact that it has this little adorable pop-up camera right here. This also can connect to messaging platforms like WeChat, which is very commonly used here in China, and you can do video chats via this screen. You also, unlike the Z9 GT that we tested, have adjustable leg rests on the right and left side seats, and, which is apparently, this is a industry first, or at least a first in this category, dual tables for both sides. Your heating, cooling, massaging functions, as well as rear entertainment and air conditioning and other functions like opening and closing the overhead shade, are controlled via the 7-inch screen here on this fold-down center armrest. On the middle of the center armrest, there's a little storage area, but more importantly, twin 50-watt wireless charging pads right here, and twin USB Type-C charging ports. To fold that down, farther back, you've got a 10-liter refrigerated and heated storage compartment. That's 10 liters, the one in the front. Yes, there is also one in the front between the front row seats. That is 4 liters. Rear legroom is identical to that of the Z9 GT, unsurprisingly, but headroom is, I would say, a little bit tighter than the wagon version of this car. The seats themselves are ridiculously comfortable and ridiculously adjustable. Take, for example, as I've already mentioned, the adjustable leg rest that's available on both sides. You've also got adjustability separately for the bottom and the top of the seat. So what that means is you can slide the seat bottom out if you want a longer seat bottom, or slide it in for a shorter one. You've also got adjustability when it comes to the angle of the seat bottom here, and you've got adjustable rake on these seats as well. According to Denza, the suspension tuning on this Z9 sedan is supposed to be geared more towards comfort versus the sportier Z9 GT wagon, but without driving the cars back to back, I really can't tell any difference between the two. When I asked them for any difference between the models, the best they could come up with, obviously other than the exterior differences, is that when you get the optional 21-inch wheels on the Z9 GT, you get a staggered width wheel. So 255 front, 275 rear, but if you get the optional 21s like these on the Z9 sedan, you get 255 front and rear, so a square stance. So if there's no noticeable difference between driving dynamics, and also the styling is more or less the same, and the interior and its features are more or less the same, and the powertrain is more or less the same, why did we bother to come back to Shenzhen a second time to drive this car? The answer is twofold. First of all, I really enjoyed driving the Z9 GT the first time, but I was hoping to drive the Z9 on something approaching an interesting road, which I didn't get to do with the Z9 GT. The second reason, and the more important one, is driver assistance. You see, even as brands like Huawei and Xpeng are producing the most advanced driver assistance systems in the world, BYD systems have always been 1, 2, and arguably 3 steps behind. I quickly want to point out the fact that that hasn't stopped them from becoming the world's largest producer of NEVs, that's hybrids and electric vehicles, so I think that's an argument towards the fact that high-level driver assistance systems isn't necessary for selling cars, and probably don't sell very many cars, but that's a separate issue. One of their sub-brands, BYD's sub-brands Fengcheng is actually working with Huawei to use their system in their latest model, the Bao 8. But BYD is still dumping a lot of money into driver assistance, for example, here in the Denza brand. They say with this latest hardware suite on the Denza Z9 and Z9 GT, which includes 2 LiDAR units mounted in the front bumpers, as well as cameras and radars for a total of 33 sensing units, and their latest NOA software upgrade, this thing should be capable of the same level of city and highway NOA, that's navigation on autopilot, as a Huawei or Xpeng system. We've come to Shenzhen to find out if that's true.
The latest ADAS software had only been pushed to the Z9 GT as of filming, so we jumped behind the wheel of one to experience the new system along a short 15-minute route. Things started off badly, with the car phantom braking and refusing to move on a couple of occasions, but it turns out that was definitely user error. The Denza engineer riding shotgun suggested that the GoPro we mounted on the hood was interfering with the camera at the top of the windshield. Sure enough, once we removed it, the system's performance improved dramatically. We proved this by going through the same route a second time, and the car exhibited none of the poor habits it had the first time around. I'm not prepared to give a final verdict on the system's performance till I'm able to do a more independent test that wasn't manicured by the automaker, but my initial impressions were very good. The system was able to confidently navigate narrow side roads and adapt to the many obstacles presented by the average Chinese commute, including cars, bikes, scooters, and pedestrians. At the very least, it's the most advanced system from any BYD Group brand and a big step towards having an actually competitive ADAS suite.
Regardless of how you look at it, power, looks, features, and now driver assistance, I think the Z9, just like the Z9 GT, qualifies as a super vehicle. This is indeed a super sedan.